Hey everyone, so before we start the video, I thought I would share my socials with you guys so you know where to find me. Hey everyone, so today I wanted to post a video on my testimony because recently I posted a video about my testimony on my TikTok account, and my friend said that she would like to hear a more longer, in-depth video of my testimony, so here it is. So to start from the very beginning, I remember when I was a little girl, my grandparents would occasionally take me to church. We didn't go to church all the time, but from time to time we would. And we were Baptist, so we followed the Baptist ways. And I remember when I was little, I did have a relationship with him. And by him, I mean God. I didn't really understand God. I didn't really understand the concept of sin. I just knew there was good and bad, and I knew there was God and there was the devil. And I knew God was good and the devil was bad. But I really did have a relationship with him despite not understanding much at all. And I remember like little things, like I would go to sleep at night and I would say like, Father, tomorrow I'm going to tell so-and-so that I like him, or like little things like that, because I was a little girl, but I had childlike faith. So I truly did have a relationship with him. I truly did believe in him. I talked to him all the time. I had love for him. And when I would go to church, even though I didn't really understand why church was a thing, I didn't really understand God or anything surrounding God or the devil, I could really feel God. I could really feel him because I truly had a relationship with him. I wasn't only a child, but I had childlike faith. And that is something that Jesus tells us to have all the time. He told his disciples to have childlike faith. He used a child as an example. And that's what I was really like as a little girl. But one point in my life, certain people left and certain people started to come in to my life, and I was very deceived. I was naive. I was gullible. I was vulnerable. And majority of these people were adults. So because I was naive, gullible, vulnerable, all those things, I was a little girl, it was easy to take advantage of me, especially because I wanted to be good, whatever good was, right? Whatever I was taught that good was, I wanted to be good. So if these people were telling me to do something or follow a certain way, I did, because I thought not listening to them would be bad. But truly listening to them was bad, because the things that they were telling me to do and telling me to follow, telling me to believe, telling me to just go with was bad. And so as a little girl, I experienced a lot of trauma, physical, mental, emotional abuse. But I didn't really take into account that it was abuse, because even though I have always been told I'm so smart, and even as a young girl, I was told that too, there are still things that I didn't understand, just like there are things now that I don't understand. So at the time, especially because I was taken advantage of, I didn't know that what I was going through was abuse. I didn't know what I was going through was wrong. And I went through that and all those things for quite a long time. It wasn't only like hatred and some form of attack towards me. It was towards people I knew, my friends, my family. At one point, because I was so young, I just say I grew up around it, because I pretty much did. I grew up around that stuff, and it really affected me, since they were affecting me physically, mentally, emotionally. That's how it had affected me for the rest of my life. Because they were doing things to me physically, mentally, emotionally, that's how it was affecting me. And I remember when I was 9 years old, I was like 8 to 9, I went through a state of depression. And I was like 8, 9 years old. No one should go through depression, but especially not an 8 or 9 year old. And I was going through depression only because of the things that I had gone through. And at one point, from the things that I've gone through, certain people left and entered my life, so it caused like a sort of reaction in me, in my brain, and it affected me emotionally, which transitioned into me becoming depressed. So even though certain people that were negative and harmful left my life, people that were negative and harmful entered my life. And I wasn't aware of that, because that's how the cycle starts. They get your trust and then they hurt you because they have your trust. They can't hurt you if they don't have your trust. They at least can't hurt you to the extent that they're trying to hurt you to. So that's what would happen to me. people would leave my life, people would enter my life, and it would be an ongoing cycle, even if it was different people. So I went through depression and I developed major trust issues. And I still have trouble trusting people to this day, but that's okay, because even in the Bible, we're told not to trust everyone, we're told to just love everyone. And that's something I also had to really learn, to love people. Because then when the depression started to go away, it still lasted. It lasted for like 2-3 years. It started to go away, and it wasn't as prominent, but it was still there, so it was still taking effect. But because it was going away, and because I was starting to be able to have an opportunity to be in a different environment, the environment I'm in now, I began to realize what was really happening to me and my friends and my family, these people that I knew. And I began to really understand how naive and gullible I was and the things that they were doing to me. And as I began to understand that more, it actually affected me more, because I didn't know how to handle it, especially considering they weren't there. I didn't know how to talk to those people, and if they were there with me, I wouldn't know how to communicate with them and talk to them about it and tell them my feelings, because I never had a chance to. And now that they weren't in my life, I didn't know how to cope with my emotions. I didn't know what to say besides things that I knew. I didn't know what to say besides things that I felt, like hatred. So depression started to leave, but these new emotions, I could finally really feel it again, but these new emotions came in, and it was mostly hatred. But not just, I didn't always feel hate, it was just specifically towards those people I felt hate. And it's understandable why I felt hate considering what I went through, but I should not have been feeling hate towards them. And that is something that people struggle with a lot and they don't want to accept. Like, people want to hate others because those people hurt them, but when you have a relationship with Christ, you realize that hating them is actually worse. But at the time, I didn't realize that when depression started to leave and my emotions started to actually regrow, all I felt was hatred, because that's all I was left with after I entered my new environment. All I could think about from my past was that. And I was in a state of something new, so I didn't know how to go about anything. And so we are all sinful, but because of this, I literally was drowning in sin. I was drowning in hatred, I was drowning in lust, I was drowning in maladaptive daydreaming, lying, cussing, whatever you name it, I was doing it pretty much. And I was drowning in it, and I liked it. I loved it. Specifically maladaptive daydreaming, which was the root for me of how certain things in my life would come up. So if you don't know what maladaptive daydreaming is, basically it's daydreaming, but an excessive amount of daydreaming. And so this can evolve for a variety of reasons. For me, it would happen when I read a certain moment in a book, or certain music, watch certain things, certain conversations. Literally anything is different for everyone, but for me, literally anything can cause maladaptive daydreaming. So if I had a little argument with somebody, it could be over the most stupidest thing ever, but I would daydream about it to an excessive amount and pretend like I'm in that moment again and getting back at that person and proving them wrong. So that's pretty much what it was for me. I would maladaptive daydream about my past through music, through reading, or whatever. And I would allow myself spiritually to attack myself physically through things like hatred towards those specific people. And again, I liked it, I loved it, because I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. I thought that was valid because of the world that we live in and the things that happened to me. So for me, how I would quote unquote cope with it was through maladaptive daydreaming, and that would evolve whatever it was, hatred or lying or whatever, towards those people. And it not only towards those people, but it affected me in the moment. I used to listen to music and maladaptive daydream for hours. I remember I had a friend at one time, and she was like, can you call, do you want to call, yada yada. Like, no, sorry, I'm maladaptive daydreaming right now. She's like, again, you've been at it for 4 hours. I'm like, yeah, well, that's the issue. It's a disorder. it takes time out of your day, and it allows you to ruin your spirit to the best of your ability. And not only that, but ruin your flesh, because people with maladaptive daydream physically, by physically I mean the way it attacks them physically, they do it in their brain, but it attacks them physically. It does it differently for everyone. For me, I used to like sit down and think about it, but then I would start to walk around and think about it while listening to music. And I would listen to music that would further feed into that, so it would just make those emotions worse. So it really affected me, and it made sin in my life very prominent, more than it probably should have, in specific sin. And because of my past and what I had gone through and what people made me believe and what the media would feed me, I stopped believing in God. Because when I was younger, I was with different people, so they were leading me down the wrong path, and it was specifically adults. But some people around my age too, but it was specifically adults that were leading me astray. And keep in mind that Jesus mentioned if anyone leads a child astray, they will be condemned for that. So you don't want to lead your children astray, okay? You want to encourage your children to go to God and have a relationship with Him. But they didn't do that to me. They led me astray. So I stopped going to church, even occasionally. I never went to church, never thought about God, stopped believing in Him, didn't think about Him. I had no relationship with Him anymore. I had childlike faith, but then I had childish faith. And that faith was in something totally different. And at one point, when I finally got away from those people and I would maladaptive daydream, sin, yada yada yada, I had more freedom, so I could do what I want, pretty much. And I would worship false gods. I would worship the universe. I would worship the Greek mythology gods, because I truly didn't know what existed and what not. And there would be times I didn't even know if I was real, literally. And that's because that's what the media does. When you go through traumatic life experiences and then you have the media shoved in your face, which I also had since I was a little girl, you're so gullible and naive that your brain literally believes everything. You might not, but your brain does, and then that affects you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so even though in here it might not feel like you believe it at first, your brain automatically will. That sounds confusing, but that's what it was, because it's feeding my brain first. I'm seeing it and hearing it, going into here, and I might not believe it at first, but because it's feeding this in here, and then it will send signals to my heart, but in a spiritual sense. It will make me feel differently and think differently and believe everything too easily, because I'm young at the time. I'm still young, but at the time I was young, naive, and gullible. So that's what the media does, and that's what happened to me. So then when I did have an environment that I could be a little bit more open and free with, I began to believe everything I heard, everything I read, everything I saw. I would worship anything I could. I'm a dancer. I used to worship dance. Now I don't. Now I try to use dance, not for myself, but more so to worship God. Same thing with anything in the performing arts. I love music. I love singing. I love acting. I love dancing. But I don't want to use that for me, and I don't want to worship it. I want to use it to worship God, who is over those, right? Dance should not be what I worship. God should be what I worship. But if He's going to allow me to dance, then I'm going to use that to represent and worship Him. But at the time, that's not what I was doing, because I didn't believe in Him. Because I would ask myself, okay, well, if He's real, why does He allow this to happen? Why did He accept this to happen to me? Yada, yada, yada. I didn't even crack open the Bible. So I didn't understand. I didn't study. I didn't talk to Him, nothing. So of course I didn't understand, because I didn't have faith. Faith is believing, trusting, and following. Faith leads to understanding. You might not always understand everything at first, even if you're in the faith. But at one point, in God's will, He's going to let you know. The Bible says, you may not understand what I'm doing now, but soon you will. And so that's what my life was pretty much like for quite a while. I would worship the universe, worship false gods, believe everything. I would think this is a simulation. I'm not real. How am I real? Is this me? Is this how I look? yada yada yada, right? I was very insecure. I started developing different disorders, and I don't like to self-diagnose, but there's a point when it gets to an extent that you know, okay, this is a disorder. Like, it was just that bad for me. And I even had like crystals and pendulums, and I just used those things to worship anything I could. I believe like those were gods. Like, I thought that's what I should believe my faith in, because I didn't understand anything, because I didn't have faith. And I had friends that believed and thought and had the same confusion as me, because we didn't know, is God real? Is Jesus Christ real? Or is he not? Is this a simulation or is it not? You know, like, we had so many questions. It goes so in depth. Like, this video would probably be more than an hour long. It's so much. There was so much going on. There was so much sin, so much worshiping of false idols, believing in the wrong things, so much of me being naive and gullible. It was bad. And so it affected me physically, mentally, emotionally, and worst of all, spiritually. And I thought that those things were good, and I thought taking part in those things were good. I thought that was going to help me in life, when truly it wasn't. How was that going to help me? And of course, it brought me happiness, but only for a moment. It never brought me happiness in the end. For example, maladaptive daydreaming, it brings you happiness for a moment, but then when you're done, you're not happy anymore. And it makes you want to go back to it over and over and over again. It's a cycle. That's what sin is. It gives you temporary fulfillment, not permanent fulfillment. God is the one that gives permanent fulfillment. He's not temporary. He's only going to be temporary in your life if you want him to be temporary. Same thing with your sin. Your sin is going to be temporary, but it can be permanent if you allow it. I wasn't allowing it to be a permanent thing, but I was allowing it to be permanently temporary over and over and over again, because that's what I liked and that's what I wanted. Even though as long as I'm on this earth and alive, sin is going to be in me, I don't have to accept for it to take over me. But at the time, that's what I allowed, because that's what I liked. It felt good for the moment. And so I would think to myself, okay, if God's real, like I mentioned, why does he allow this to happen? And because I would ask myself that question, and there were also other questions I would ask myself, like, how could God always just be there? How could he not have a beginning? Yada, yada, yada. Like, I didn't understand, because I didn't have faith. I didn't study. I didn't read. Nothing. I didn't even pray. The only one I prayed to was the universe, because I didn't know. And so I would just ask myself those questions, like, if he's real, if he does not have a beginning, if he can just always be there, if he knew what was going to happen, why did those things have to happen to me? So I didn't believe in my mind, but I felt deep down in my heart that I probably did believe. But because of that, I felt resentment towards him. You could even say hatred. But at the time, I wouldn't necessarily call it hatred, because it's not like I thought about him all the time. So I didn't necessarily have feelings towards him all the time. But if I'm looking at it from a now perspective, and if I'm thinking about what I was like deep down in my heart, my soul, I think I did have some sort of hate towards him and resentment, because I didn't understand. And so that's pretty much what my life was like for a while. And these disorders just kept growing and developing, and I allowed it to. And sin just became a cycle that I consumed and reproduced over and over again. I liked it for the moment and then hated it afterwards and went back to it. I didn't understand why, but I just kept doing that until one night I was scrolling on TikTok, and my For You page at the time, because even then, at this point in my life, I had even started to push myself away from the universe and all that stuff, because I didn't know what to believe. I just went about my daily life, because I have school, I have dance, I have so much on my schedule. Like, how can I focus on anything else, you know? So I just started to push myself away from worshiping the universe at that point, right? So I had nothing on my For You page even about the universe anymore, nothing whatsoever. It was just a regular TikTok For You page. And so that meant, like, I also had no anything religion based, nothing relationship based with Christ. So I got this video one night on my For You page. It was, I don't remember who it was, but it was a daughter and a father singing the song, Mary, Did You Know? And because I never really had an opportunity, besides when I was younger, to have a relationship with Christ, I never really knew any worship music, any music dedicated to God. So I didn't know the song Mary, Did You Know? But I thought it was very beautiful. And I thought the people singing it were, like, they had very beautiful voices. You don't really hear people with voices like that nowadays, because most people just fake their music. They can't actually sing. So I was shocked by their voices and how well it fit with the music. And that's pretty much what I really thought about the most. I never really thought about the lyrics or the name of the song that much, until I would read the comments on the TikTok video and then on the YouTube video, because they had a full version on YouTube. I would listen to both versions and I would read the comments over and over again, because each time the comments would always talk about Christianity, God, Jesus, Mary. I'd be like, okay, but why is this on my For You page? Why is this in my algorithm? My For You page has nothing to do with religion or relationship based with Christ whatsoever. But the song got stuck in my head. And then I would, to the point that I would even listen to it during school when I shouldn't be listening to music, but I would. And so I became, like, I guess you could say, obsessed with the song, because it was stuck in my head so much. Not to the point that I, like, worshiped the song, of course, but I just listened to it all the time because it was so beautiful. No matter who sung it, I just thought it was so beautiful. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And then I would think back, considering I couldn't get it out of my head, I would be like, okay, I can get this out of my head. And I'm thinking about the comments. I'd be like, okay, if God is real and he is trying to reach out to me through this song, I'm gonna give him a chance. I would start to watch Christian TikToks, start to learn more about God and why sin and suffering exist and how he could exist if he has no beginning. I begin to learn and understand how he is eternal, not just immortal. I begin to understand how everything came to be and why there's good and bad, and why he gave us choice and how that is a part of what makes him so good. I begin to understand things and really study scripture, write down verses, read Bibles, study the Bibles, and listen to worship music. But at one point in my life, I fell back into sin. And I realized that when I was having a relationship with Christ, when I actually was like, okay, if he's trying to reach out to me through this song, I'm gonna give him a chance. And I started to give him that opportunity to connect with me and me connect with him, begin to read and study his word, watch videos about him, learn more about him and his creation, how everything came to be and how we are the way we are right now and what life is going to be like in the future. I actually begin to feel whole, right? I begin to feel filled, right? But I would at one point fall back into sin, and then I felt really disgusted about it. I felt really bad. And it was specifically lust and maladaptive daydreaming. But I think the lust overtook the maladaptive daydreaming, which is surprising for me. But that's what happened, and I felt really disgusted. And lust doesn't only affect your flesh, it affects you inside and out. So I felt terrible about it. And so I would cry out to God, pray to God, ask him to help me overcome this, because I knew I couldn't do it on my own based off the learning, studying I've done, and coming to the realization that he is real. I would pray to him about it and stuff, but it wouldn't go away for about a week or so. And then I remember one time, at my most vulnerable moment with him, I just cried out to him. And that same night, I was scrolling on my phone, because if you have time to scroll on your phone, you have time to talk to God. You have time to be with God and read his word. So I was scrolling on my phone. He was like, okay, so you got time to scroll on your phone? I'm going to give you information and videos from me on your phone then. So a bunch of videos, I opened up TikTok, all of a sudden a bunch of videos about lust popped up and how to overcome it, and prayers about it, and music, just a bunch of things to defeat the sin that I was struggling with and to reconnect with God. And I knew that he was talking directly to me, because each and every video was about lust, and it was all religion and relationship based with Christ. So I knew God had heard me. I knew he is real. I knew he wants to help me. I knew. There's nothing to go from there. Like, I knew he was real, and I knew he was good, and I knew he had heard me and knew I was struggling and wanted to help me. And I knew me being on my phone, I need to get off, because how am I going to cry out to him for help and then get on my phone afterwards instead of spending time in his word? Yeah, no. So I realized he's trying to reach out to me. He does care for me, but I wasn't giving him a chance to show that I accept his help. So even though he wanted to help me, I didn't give him that opportunity, or at least I didn't accept it. So at this moment, he was just done. He was like, you know what, you got time to be on your phone, then I'll put it on your phone. You're so desperate and I want to help you, and you clearly want help, but you want to be on your phone instead, so I'm just going to put it all on your phone. And then I realized, like, I felt convicted. But then I also realized, like, he is real. Like, that's when I truly realized he's real. He's good. And he does hear me. He does help. He does care. He does love. And I need to get off my phone. So after that, I immediately, like, stopped lusting. Like, lust could not pop into my head. I could not feel lust anymore. It just went away. Like that. And then there were, of course, times when I would fall back into it, because that's probably something that I struggled with the most in my, like, beginning of my relationship with Christ. But after that, it wasn't really something that overtook me, and it barely happens now. Like, maybe once or twice every few months, it happens. But no, like, it barely happens anymore. Lust is not something I struggle with anymore. And same thing with maladaptive daydreaming. That one's still a little hard to overcome, but that one's definitely, like, gone. Like, it's out. Like, there are times it comes back, but I have to tell myself, Romans 8:31, God is for us, who can be against us? So that even goes with sin. Even though sin is in my human nature and wants to attack me, I have God, so I can overcome it. And Philippians 4 verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13 talks a lot about temptation and how it is normal to mankind, and God knows that, and he knows that we don't want to struggle with it, so he's going to give us a way out from it. He's going to give us a way to escape it with the temptation. He's going to use the temptation that is trying to attack us, and he's going to turn it into a path to run away from it and to run away from the sin. He's not going to force us to bear more than we can handle. That's what 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13 talks about. So anytime I will struggle, or anytime I do struggle, I think about those verses, and the lust or the maladaptive daydreaming or whatever it is that I'm struggling with, it just stops. And I think that plays a huge role in regards to that day I truly gave my all to him. Because when I gave my all to him, I accepted every part of him, including his word. So now, maladaptive daydreaming and lust and all those other things I struggle with, I don't struggle with anymore. Of course, I fall back from time to time, but God always helps me back up. So no, I don't struggle with those things anymore. At least not like I used to. And that's because he is so good and so perfect and so loving. He wants to help us. And I accepted him to do so. I accepted him to come into my life and fulfill me with love, to turn me into the person that he originally designed me to be. He spoke to me through music, and I accepted him. I said, okay, if he's real, I'm gonna give him a chance. And that was all he needed. He just wanted me to give him one opportunity to be in my life. He just needs one little crack. That's all he needs. Nothing's impossible for him. But it's a matter of choice. So if I'm going to give him a little bit of a crack, he's going to use what he has, and he's going to turn it into something your brain can't even comprehend. It's not something you're going to imagine. He's just going to use what he has, and he's going to turn it into something amazing. You wouldn't even, think of it. And he's still working on me today. But I am far better than what I was before. And I'm so grateful to be where I am right now, even if there's things I still struggle with and still need work on. I am finally walking in the steps that he wanted me to walk in, and I'm so grateful He spoke to me through music, and I'm so happy that I did not be stupid, did not act foolish, but instead I acted smart and accepted him. And then over time I got rid of like my witchcraft stuff, my universe-based stuff. I got rid of all that. I stopped worshiping false gods, stopped believing in the things I believed in, and I started to go solely based off of his word. And that changed also a lot of my views politically, or maybe on health care, like abortion. Like a lot of my views changed. I began to have discernment to understand what is bad and what is good and what is trying to trick me and think that it's good when it's not. I began to grow and develop in discernment and fruits of the spirit, wisdom. I began to preach the gospel, things like that. I started to go to church. I got baptized, water baptized, so now I'm baptized in both spirit and water. So yeah, that's pretty much my testimony. He just redirected me from what I was directed to, right? I had a relationship with him, but people came in my life and directed me somewhere else, and I didn't want to give him a chance because I didn't understand, but he knew why I didn't understand, and he wanted to give me a chance to understand. So he spoke to me through music, what I love, music, and he redirected me. That's all it is. Redirection. Rejection leads to redirection. He had to work in me to help me reject everything that was in my life and that affected me, so he could redirect me. That's what it was. He spoke to me through music so I could accept him, and so he could help me reject everything else and allow for him to redirect me and design me into who he originally intended for me to be. And then my hatred towards the people that affected me in my past, I don't hate them anymore. I can't feel hate towards them. Of course, I have to continuously forgive them in my heart. They're not here in my life anymore for good reason. But it is important that I do forgive them. So the Bible says, Jesus told Peter, do not forgive someone just 7 times, but 77 times. And the point was continuously forgive. And the Bible also mentioned God, who is so great and above us, he forgives others. Why would we not forgive people that are just like us? Because we're not better than them. But yet he is better than us, and he forgives them and forgives us. And not only that, but he died on the cross for us. And while he was dying on the cross, he forgave people that hurt them, because we do not truly understand the depth of our sin, because we are not perfect. So he forgave us and died for us and rose again for us. He did all that he did and does and will do for us, not just for him, but for us, for us to have a relationship, because that's what he originally wanted, just a relationship with his creation. So because he's so great, yet he forgives us and teaches us to forgive others, that's what I did. Because of that, I no longer hate them. I continuously forgive them, but I don't hate them. And if the more I forgive, the more I feel better about forgiving. It doesn't only make me feel good, but let's say like if they were here, it would make them feel good too. Maybe not like good, like, oh my gosh, I'm so, like they really meant they're sorry and then they really feel happy that they're forgiven. They might feel a little bit different towards forgiveness because of the type of people they are, because some people will take forgiveness as an advantage to take over that person, but nonetheless it's still going to make them feel good and make us feel good. And that's what matters, is that we repent, which is to ask for forgiveness after we confess our sins, and then ask for guidance to turn away from those sins. And then as we as we receive forgiveness, we forgive others who we truly don't deserve it, but God says to do so, and he says it for good reason. And then once we do so, we realize that it really does affect us for good reason and in good ways. So we repent and we forgive. And that's what I've had to do in my heart, because they're not here. It can be hard to like say one-on-one like I forgive you, but I can tell God that I forgive him, and if he wants to, he can send my love and forgiveness to them, and I continuously forgive them in my heart. And the more I do so, the more easier it is to forgive, and the more easier it is to love, because it shouldn't have to be like hard to love people, but because of sin and the world we live in, it is hard to love people. But because I have learned to continuously forgive and learn to love, because also Jesus said to love God and love your neighbor. and love your enemies, because your neighbor isn't always going to be your friend. Sometimes your neighbor is going to be your enemy, but you should love him anyways. So because of that, because of what he has said and what he has done for us, and because I know he's true, I do so, and it works. It like actually transforms you. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel whole. It makes you feel his love. And so I feel better than ever, because I realized when I hated them, I did not feel good. But when I loved them, despite what they did to me, I actually felt good. I felt so good. And forgiving them feels good. Loving them feels good. So now I do all that I do for him and him only. And if I do something for myself, I make sure I put myself second to him. For example, if I'm dancing, right? Of course, I like to dance because it makes me feel happy, makes me feel fun, you know, it makes me feel good. It's a good way to let out your emotions, right? It's a good way to express yourself. It's a good hobby to learn. It affects you positively sometimes, most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't always feel good on the body, but it most of the time affects me physically, mentally, and emotionally, and even spiritually now, in a good way. But I shouldn't let that be my number one priority. I should not let what I do be for me over God. Same thing with what Jesus said. He said to love God first. That was the first thing he said in commandments when he was expressing the commandments to the Pharisees. I think it was Matthew 22. He said, love God. That was the first thing he said in regards to commandments, love God. And then he said, and love your neighbor. He said the first greatest commandment is to love your God. And then love your neighbor. So now what I do now is I do everything for Christ. And if I'm doing something for me, I make sure it's in his will, in his plan, and I make sure I don't put me over him, but put him over me. So I do him, and then everything else comes after. So that's me, my friends, my family, the things I do, the things I love, whatever it is. I do all of it for him, and then for others, then for me. And I no longer worship the universe. I no longer worship crystals or pendulums or yada yada yada, you know, like I no longer do witchcraft stuff. I'm no longer for the works of the devil. Because that's essentially what it is. It's for the devil. Even if you don't know that, it is. Because anything that is not for God is against God. Anything that's against God is for the devil. So I no longer do those things. And the disorders I used to have, they're either not in my life or they're leaving my life currently. And I take care of myself. I'm no longer going through depression. I feel happier than ever. I'm living the life. And I don't feel hate towards others. I don't feel resentment. I just love people. And if there's ever a moment I do feel resentment, I ask God to take it away out of my life and help give me the strength to continuously forgive them. And he comes through every single time. He spoke to me through music. I gave him a chance. That was all he needed. And now this is where I am. And now I'm spreading the word to my family, my friends, and even to people all over the world. That's my testimony. That's pretty much it. So I hope this reaches somebody that maybe needs it and maybe is going through the same thing I'm going through. Because there's a lot of people that actually are and they don't accept Christ. There are very few people that go through what I've gone through and accept Christ. So I hope that there's someone that's going through what I've gone through, and hopefully this reaches them and maybe gives them even a thought to consider God and what he can do in their life and change them and lead them to where it is right for them to be led to. And hopefully they feel conviction about the wrong things that maybe they are doing that were like what I was doing, and not feel necessarily ashamed and want to hide away, but feel understood and understand the wrong and right of what they do and how to turn away from that and how to turn to God. I hope that this helps someone. I pray God let this video reach whoever it needs to be reached to. And for my friend who wanted to hear a more in-depth story on my testimony, here you go. Okay, so yeah, bye!